Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wannabe Entrepreneur, the podcast about what's really like to bootstrap a company. And today we are here with Marie Martens. Hey Marie, everything good with you?
Hi, Tiago. Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for accepting the invite to speak with Wannabe Entrepreneurs. Marie is the founder of Tally together with her partner Filip. And Tally is basically for my side at least is the best form builder for indie hackers. I started using it actually quite recently, even though I heard this name quite often, and I love it. It's so easy, and it's a great tool for any indie hacker because when you're starting a business, of course you want to both get the data from your users in a nice beautiful way, and you also want to collect payments. And one great feature that I love about Tally is the fact that we can just embed a Stripe payment form in the form, and it's really great. And I've used it many times just to bootstrap something because do the Stripe integration ourselves it takes a lot of time. So today, Marie is already an expert in podcasts. You are in the Indie Hackers podcast, in the Indie Bytes, in the Kevon's podcast, and I don't know, probably many, many more. So it's nothing new for you, Marie, but we'll be speaking about your journey building Tally, and you're also a mom. So I'm super also excited and interested in knowing how having a doctor really changed the dynamic of being an indie hacker and everything behind it. So I think this will be a really, really interesting conversation. So to kick things off, I would love to ask you to do a short introduction about yourself and about your background before building Tally.
Yeah, thanks so much for that great introduction. So I'm Marie, co-founder of Tally. I founded Tally in the summer of 2020 together with Filip. Filip is my technical co-founder, but also partner in life. As you mentioned, I'm also a mother, so we had our first daughter in actually the same year as we founded Tally. So that
Wow.
has changed a lot for us for sure, but we can go into that later. I have a background in mainly B2B marketing, so I worked at some smaller and bigger companies in Belgium, but always in tech. And Philip, his background is he has founded other startups, and he's a full
Hmm.
stack developer. The latest startup was Delta. It's a crypto portfolio tracker app, so something completely different that got acquired, and that also helped us to start our own startup journey with Tally. So that's just a bit about me.
You have the perfect team, it seems, right? Because when you start a company, there's two main challenges, which is one is the tech side, building the
Right.
product itself, and the other is the marketing side. I know everyone is always running. I don't know if you know, for instance, Dagobert is always joking
I
around
do.
marketing and how marketing is something that everyone is avoiding. But you have that background.
Yeah.
Tell me, when you're working for these companies, when tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what have you done before? What kind of companies you work for, and what have you learned in this area of marketing that you were able to use now with Tally?
Yeah, I think the most relevant experience was my last job
Hmm.
before we started our startup journey. So I was a marketing manager at a digital product studio. So it's basically an agency in Belgium that develops
Okay.
software for digital products for other clients in retail, finance, and so on. So I was responsible for the B2B marketing, so making sure that decision makers in the country know about us when they want to, develop a digital product, have it designed and engineered. I would have a lot of designers and developers as my colleagues. So I guess what I learned there is quite a lot. I would say a lot about product development, about shipping things fast, trying to
Hmm.
keep the cycle small and ship it and tweak it, not to dive too deep into processes, but just try to get something functional on the market and then improve it. So that's something
Right.
that was very present there. I think marketing wise, there we were organizing a lot of events, for example, which is something that is less relevant in my job now.
Hmm.
But definitely the branding aspect, the storytelling, the fact that your brand is as important as the product. Of course, the
Hmm.
product needs to work great, otherwise no one is going to use it. But the story
Right.
around it, and I would say the main takeaway would be the importance of content marketing. So for us, something that we're doing at Tally a lot is we're trying to share our journey,
Hmm.
we're trying to create relevant content for our target audience, which is usually also startup founders.
Hmm.
And I think that's also something that differentiates us a bit from the bigger players. Of course, everyone is creating content, but our story is a bit different as indie hackers
Right.
and a small team of two, actually three since last week. So yeah, I think those are like the main things. There's a lot more, but I would say those are the main learnings that kind of
Okay.
help me growing Tally right now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So to to summarize, you spoke about great content, which is yeah, something really important for SEO reasons, for
Yeah.
instance, and to help people connect. You spoke about organizing events, which is maybe not that as relevant for now, but it's also something interesting. It's something that
Yeah.
helps with the brand awareness and to
Yeah.
connect with people. And you also spoke about something that I found really interesting, which is the fact that you understand the cycle of releasing a product, a tech product. And
Right.
often when I worked, I worked, for instance, in a company in the travel industry, which I know it's an industry that you like, which called it's called Trivago, and
Okay.
uh, and this company, by the way, which it's in Düsseldorf, which I've seen that you also organized some. I checked your LinkedIn profile like a stalker, and I saw that you organized some events in Düsseldorf. Is that true?
That
No.
would, yeah, for my internship actually. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's like way back, but it's true.
Uh, so you visit the city.
I've been there, but it's been
Yeah.
more than 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I lived there for a few years, and I was like, oh,
Okay.
every time I see Düsseldorf, it's such a known interesting city. It's a good city to live in, but it's not like Ghent, for instance, where you live now, or
Yeah.
Paris or Lisbon. So every time I see someone living in, or that not living, but that as Düsseldorf somehow connected to them, I was like, oh, super cool, Düsseldorf. Anyways, you spoke about how, yeah, okay, I got my train of thought now. You know how the release cycle works. And I remember in Trivago, for instance, we always have this problem with marketeers, where sometimes marketeers would come up with features and put these new features in their ads, even though these features were not ready. Uh,
Right.
so
Yeah.
is this something that you've seen, for instance, in other companies, that like there was a disconnection between the marketing department and development department?
Um, Not really, because yeah, I would say at my previous job we would develop software for other clients, right? So we would not do the marketing for them.
Hmm.
So that was not really a thing. But like
Right.
for us, like for example, at Tally, we're only two people, so there's not really a division between marketing and
Right.
engineering. It all blends
Right.
in one, right? Because our new product features are like super interesting marketing wise, because that's what we talk about and it gets our
Right.
users excited. So that would not happen with us, but I do know that is the case in a lot of bigger product companies, that there's
Hmm.
like this real disconnect between marketing and engineering.
Yeah.
And it's weird, right? Because it should be, I mean, it should be like a one-on-one type of thing. It,
It should. Yeah.
I think for us, what really helps me is that I was until recently also doing a big part of customer support. So I would hear everything that is being requested. So I would also
Right.
know, like, okay, it makes sense to develop this now or to write an article about this or this feature because
Uh-huh.
it is what is wanted, So there's not at all a disconnect between what marketing would do and what the users would
Right.
request or what my partner then Filip would engineer. So I guess that's what I like about being such a small team is that we're too small to have disconnects,
Right.
because there's no boundaries. But I can imagine that it's a big challenge to keep it like that when you grow, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. When you are an entrepreneur, you build your own company, you're so much more connected
Yeah,
with the success and of the company and how the product works and how the yeah, you're connected to the users
right.
that it's easy for you to understand how crucial it is to have marketing and development connected. Tell me about your background as an entrepreneur because I quite often see that entrepreneurship is something that like comes from early on. A lot of people that are entrepreneurs that I've interviewed in the podcast, they've tried many things before, or they always had like this kind of passion for entrepreneurship or starting something. Is it the same for you?
Um, I would say mine is a bit different. So I would say like my partner would be the classic example of that. Like since
Okay.
he was a student, he's been trying out projects and launching different things. Many failed, and some of them succeeded. So he definitely got like this passion from very early on to just build things and but not necessarily to like sell them. So it would often, stop at just like building it, and then
Right.
nothing would really happen anymore. At least with the earlier projects that he did.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've always enjoyed creating things and starting new things, but I've never had. Really, I mean, I've always been able to do that in my job as well because I work like
Okay.
at cool
Yeah.
company,
Yeah.
and I got the liberty to do that within my job. But for me, I guess I really needed some convincing to just quit my job and go like all out for entrepreneurship, without having any safety or
Yeah.
security, especially financially. So I guess our story might be a bit different, as in we were a bit older probably than the average startup founder when we
Mm-hmm.
when we started our first startup, which was not Tally but Hotspot. Um, we were, I guess 30, 32 or something. So we had
Mm-hmm.
worked for around 10 years, also had saved some money. So we
Yeah.
had like a runway, which is, I think, quite important, or at least it was
Definitely.
important for us to be sure that we could pay our bills at least for like a year or a bit longer if we would not make money. So it would not put too much pressure on us, like the financial side. Um, and I've always wanted to travel and like have the whole digital nomad lifestyle. So all of that kind of came together in the beginning of 2020 when we just decided to travel and try our first startup, which is Hotspot. It's something else than Tally, in a different space. It was a
Right.
marketplace that connects travel influencers with hotels,
Yeah.
and kind of enables like smaller hotel owners to work with influencers and promote
Interesting.
their places. So our idea was to travel while building this. We already had like an MVP. We had some first paying customers, so we had like an idea of this might become
Right.
something.
And you
Um,
did you know the space before? Like
no,
you worked in? No.
no,
Okay.
not at all. So that might have been a number one mistake. We're very interested, but we definitely don't know the space. I mean, we like to travel, and it stops there. We
Yeah.
don't know anything about the hotel hospitality industry, so
Mm-hmm.
no. Um, of course, yeah, the adventure didn't last very long because of COVID.
Right. Yeah.
So we kind of the traveling. We had to return after 1 week. 1 month later, pandemic, the whole travel industry was down.
I definitely know that because I was in the same situation. I was working in a small startup in the travel industry,
Okay.
and from one day to the other, like literally everything stopped.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we were having our best. We're like growing a growing startup. We were having the best numbers ever, in I think
Okay.
January or February, I don't remember. But then
Oh
the next
wow.
month, everything
March.
went to zero, and it's yeah, it's definitely COVID definitely changed, I guess, both of our lives. But I'm also interested, like how this conversation goes. So you like to be creative, but you don't like maybe or necessarily enjoy taking this kind of risk of okay, let's quit my job and go full time.
Yeah.
And Philip, it's the opposite. I was checking also here on his Twitter profile that he actually sold the company to eToro, so
Right.
which is a quite known company. So it's really interesting. How did this conversation go of you two saying like I want to travel? Okay, let's also build something together.
Yeah.
Do you remember that those days?
Yeah, it was a bit of a combination of elements. So first, as you said, Philip had sold his last startup, which
Hmm.
meant he had, and he also left the company at that stage, so he didn't stay on
Okay.
board, which meant he had time, and we had money, which is I think quite important and maybe not
Hmm.
talked about often enough.
Yeah.
So we had some more savings all of a sudden at that time to be able to take more risks. So I think that was like a big one in taking the decision. Also, we had been working on Hotspot as a side project, like
Okay.
next to my full time job, and the excitement of like people paying for it and people actually using it really also kind of got to me and made me really excited to like
Right.
maybe I want to like what if we do this full time. It
Yeah.
makes you
Was it your
curious.
idea?
It was actually an idea we had kind of had together in when we were traveling in Mexico a
Hmm.
couple of years before that, and we were in Tulum, which is like the
Hmm.
hotspot for travel influencers, and we were just
Okay.
talking about like because at that time there was a lot of negative publicity about travel influencers and them wanting to have free stays at hotels, and
Right.
so we were kind of like talking about that and just wondering like how does it work for smaller hotel owners who maybe don't get all the attention from influencers and while they might actually be able to use it, and how could we like connect both of them, and it just kind of organically, it was more like a
Hmm.
brainstorm or a dream during our holiday.
Right.
And yeah, so that's kind of how that started. And then we just made, well, we actually needed a form, and because we wanted to check if we could find hotels that would be interested in the idea. And
Hmm.
we used Google Forms, which I was like a bit frustrated because
Yeah.
it doesn't look well and I don't really enjoy using it. So,
Yeah. It's
but
so
we ended
ugly.
up, yeah, using
Compared with your product, it's so
it.
ugly. Yeah.
Yeah, we ended up using it because Typeform was also expensive.
Yeah.
We were, not earning any money with it. So we ended up making a Google form and just doing like cold outreach to some hotels that we found on Instagram, asking,
Hmm.
would you be interested if we would build this product? And then we said to ourselves, if we find 100, which seemed like a lot for us at the
It's a
time,
lot. Yeah.
then we build it. So that was like our like
Yeah.
kind of incentive. And we found 100 quite
Wow.
fast. So we thought, okay, there's something here. So I guess that kind of validation combined with Philip
Yeah.
having time, combined with us having some more financial resources. Um, I was working around 4 years at my job, and I also felt like maybe it's time for something new.
Hmm.
And all of that combined kind of, and also there was one more thing we also like tested. So we went to Lanzarote for two
Yeah.
weeks to have like a
Uh-huh.
workation. So like,
Yeah.
how is this traveling and working, is it as easy as people say? So we also did that, and we did it for 2 weeks, and just we rented like an Airbnb in the morning, so we would work until like 4 and then we would explore the island.
Yeah.
And we really, yeah, we really loved that. So yeah, that's kind of what got us to go all in
Yeah.
and try to do something together. Yeah, so it was not like
It's
an
it's it's
overnight decision.
right. Right. So it's a whole process, but
Yeah,
there's also here also quite interesting in my perspective, which is so Philip was able to sell his company, and you have
yeah,
this nice runway, right?
yeah,
And at this point, you are also in like early 30s, right?
yeah,
So a lot of people in that age start thinking, okay, let's build a family. right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of the opposite of going all in on a startup, right? Like, so
Yeah.
you try, okay, okay, nice, we have some money, we can save it, and now maybe let's be a little bit more conservative, maybe start a family and see if everything works for first 1, 2, 3 years,
Yeah.
and then maybe then risk it if we feel comfortable.
Right.
But so was starting a family already part of your mind back then, or is it something just came afterwards?
Yeah, we both knew we wanted children. So in
Hmm.
our so that actually also kind of played a role. We were like, okay, early 30s, if we want to like travel and try out the startup thing, we should do it
Right.
now, before we start
Yeah.
thinking about kids. And that was the whole idea. Now, because of COVID, all of that
Yeah.
didn't happen, and we were back at home, after literally like 1 month, in lockdown for almost a year. And then we just started thinking like, okay, we can wait, but we don't really know how long this is gonna take. And should we like, I mean, things might have gone very differently if we went traveling. Maybe we would have waited a couple of years, and
Yeah.
who knows. But that didn't happen. And then when we understood that COVID was also not really going away, we decided not to put like our personal lives on hold for the startup
Hmm.
story.
Right.
So that's kind of how it all came together. But I would not advise it. Like, it's not a competitive advantage to have a small kid and run a startup.
Yeah,
So
I
if
can
you can do
imagine.
it differently, I would. It was also not really our game plan from the start. But then
Right.
we just, kind of went with it, and very
And
happy,
how
of
what
course, now. Yeah.
obviously, but I mean, that's very brave as well, right? Like, weren't you worried that, okay, we are we are having kids, and now what if this fails, right?
Yeah.
What if
Yeah.
we don't have time to do it? Like,
Yeah.
was going back to a normal job a possibility?
It
Like,
was.
how did you rationalize that?
I think for us, the thing we said, like, what's the worst that can happen is that this fails. Yeah, no one thought about a pandemic, of course, but we can always, we work in tech, we have experience. We can always go back and find a job that
Hmm.
we would probably like doing. So the worst thing that could happen, or the worst case scenario, was to have to find a job and go back to work as an employee. So that was definitely an option, because we had no clue if this
Uh,
thing would work.
yeah.
The I was definitely scared about combining like the baby with the startup journey and not earning money. That was it was definitely there. But then again, because we had some savings from the sale, that just kind of helped us to say, okay, we can last for a year or a bit longer, like 2 years, and we will still be fine
Yeah.
if we don't make any money. So that definitely helps, but it doesn't really make it less stressful, because you live from your savings and you see it go down every
Yes.
month and nothing comes
Yes, I
in.
know what it. Yeah,
And that's
definitely know.
that's not fun. Of course, COVID helped us, because we could not go to restaurants, we could not travel, so we were spending a lot less than we
Yeah.
would usually do. So that definitely helped. But it was definitely stressful, and it still is.
Yeah.
With, of course, the change that now we are making money, and after a while we could start paying ourselves a salary, and then the whole situation changes, of
Mhm.
course. The kid grows
The,
up, so yeah.
yeah. The How was the reaction of the people around you, like your friends, your family? I don't know. Here in Portugal, for instance, people are still very family centric. So,
Yeah.
ha- my parents would definitely get nervous. Okay, starting something without having a steady job, and
Yeah.
starting a family without having a steady job. Was it the same for you, or did you get support? How was it?
Yeah, I think we got both. Mainly, I mean, it was difficult. I think people were really afraid of what we were doing, just
Yeah.
because, especially in Flanders, there's not like the whole entrepreneurial mindset is not really something that we're born with, so
Hmm.
people are really risk averse and try to avoid taking to yeah just taking financial risks,
Right.
basically. So quitting your job and then having a baby would not be like a a normal
Advisable
thing
thing to
to
do.
do
Yeah.
or advisable thing to do. So there was a lot of that, like, what if you get pregnant? What are you going to do? You're not going to get like there's like maternity leave, and
Yeah.
usually when you can stay at home for a while and you would still get some money from the government. We didn't get all of that. So that was stressful. Also, like, you're both in it full time.
Yes. Exactly.
What are you gonna do when it fails? So there was definitely that from family side as well. Although yeah, my parents were like dying to get a grandchild, so I guess
Yeah.
that like overweighed the the whole situation. They were just happy to to get a baby. And my sister is quite entrepreneurial. She works at Media Monks, like
Hmm.
multinational, has a high position there. So she was always supportive of the idea.
Right.
So there was a bit of both, but I would say, yeah, the a lot of people made us scared instead of
Yeah.
supporting us, which is normal because people are like a form builder or travel
Yeah. What is that?
influencers. Is
Explain
you
that
really
to your
think that's
family. It must
gonna
be hard.
work?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, there's no office, there's no employees. Yeah,
Social
it,
security and
oh
employment
no,
fee,
yeah,
nothing, right?
yeah, no, no, no.
How do you like? What is your tip to deal with
Yeah,
that fear? Like, do you just like put it aside? It's like, yeah, let's okay, let's forget about it and think about tomorrow instead of next year,
yeah.
or like, what is your tips?
I think for us, we gave ourselves some time, right? Like, as I said before, like, we also knew the first thing might fail. Of course, you don't go in it with that mindset. You like go full on and you really think that your project is going to succeed.
Yeah.
But just knowing that it might fail, and maybe it's the second or the third thing that works out, or maybe it's a 10th thing. But to have that mindset, you also need to have the time, and having the time means having the money. And that's just something
Right.
that for us really helped, is just knowing that, okay, we will be able to pay our bills even if this startup doesn't work out in the coming months.
Right.
I think that definitely helped. And also, just we had each other. I think, like, solo founders, I have a lot of respect for them, because I don't know how you do it without like support from someone
Yeah.
who is in the same boat. And I guess what also helped with us is that we're partners in life and living together. So
Yeah.
there's only one rent that needs to be paid, right? If you're with like two co-founders and
True.
two families, that's already a
Hmm.
different story. And then there might be other partners getting, stressed out by the
Right.
situation. So we were in the same boat. We were supporting each other, and we said, worst thing, we just go back, find a job, and that's it. That's also fine. Of
Right.
course, that was not gonna be our dream, and we would be disappointed. But yeah, it's kind of how it went
Okay.
for us.
And then your first approach was a startup in the traveling area,
Yeah,
which failed, right?
yeah,
Obviously because of COVID, not necessarily because of you or because of the
yeah.
idea, but it was just impossible for any startup in that area
No,
because there was no traveling, right? So
no.
that failed, and then suddenly, I don't know how long did that project, or for how long did you work in that project? Six
Yeah.
months
So
or
I would say it was already like a year on the side, as a side project,
okay,
and then so I quit my job like in January, February 2020. And then in March, COVID happened. And we
right?
still worked on it for a couple of months because we thought, how long can this take, this
Uh-huh.
pandemic thing? So we thought we'll develop some features, like, just prepare now that we both
Yeah,
had like full time, resources to do so, until the summer. And then by the summer, we said, okay, we need to pivot or do something else,
right.
because there's no way that we can find new clients and grow
Mhm.
this as a very young startup in this environment. So
Mhm.
yeah, I
Was
guess
it an
then
easy decision to take?
no, and no, it was not, because for me it was scary. I was already pregnant at the time, so it was
Okay.
also like starting from scratch. with
Wow.
no idea if this new thing would, work. So we just
Yeah.
knew we did not want anything to do with travel. So it had to
Yeah.
be something else. And I guess the space that we are in now is also a lot closer to our passion and our previous jobs. It's more of a tech audience, or a product audience
Mhm.
that we are in now. So yeah, I think in the end, like not full time, but the project went on for like a year and a half.
Okay.
First as a side project, and then like 6 months with both of us working full
Right.
time on it before we decided to do something else. Yeah,
Mhm. So you reached that decision. You're
yeah,
already pregnant, and how did you deal with it? Was it like a lot of anxiety back then? What do you remember? What was going on your mind? Because I can imagine. I also run a community of makers,
okay,
and one of our members now, she's also pregnant, and what she says as well is that, okay, I feel that I also don't have the energy sometimes to
yeah,
work and to do things that I need to do, right?
yeah.
Was it something that also was worrying you and think, okay,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
yeah,
that definitely happened. I would be like tired, but then of course we were at home, working from our living room. So I also could have, naps. I didn't have to go to an office, and we didn't launch yet. So I was doing more some like research, and Philip
okay,
started building the MVP. So I think for me at that time it was actually. Better than I would be, an employee somewhere,
right,
because
yes,
we didn't have users yet. And of course, there's the anxiety like, is this going to work? But it was all so early. So for me, I could actually rest whenever I
hmm
wanted. And
yeah, give you more flexibility, yeah,
more flexibility, just, like if you want to sleep 1 hour during the day, it's fine. And then you work a bit more in
yeah,
the evening. So that definitely helped. So for me, that was quite, I would not say chill, but that definitely helped in taking things a bit
hmm
slower.
was not
Um,
as bad as one would expect.
no, no, definitely not.
Okay,
No, I think for me it was easier than women that had to go to
work,
the office
okay,
or work somewhere else. Yeah,
yeah,
so I
somewhere
think
else,
that
yeah,
that definitely helped.
hmm
Um, but again, also because we gave ourselves some time, and we just decided to take things slow and do it at our own pace. We also don't have investors, so we decide
yeah,
everything ourselves. There's no outside pressure,
hmm
and when you haven't launched yet, no one also knows what you're doing. So the
hmm
only pressure is the one that
yeah,
you put on yourselves.
exactly, you make your own pressure, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. So tell me, how did you have this idea to build a form builder?
yeah,
Like, how did that come to be? Because you go from the travel industry to suddenly, you know what? Let's build a form. Like, how? What's the
yeah.
connection?
Um, So I think one connection is that we needed forms in our previous jobs, and also for
Okay,
hotspots, right?
right.
We made the Google form. So we had already experienced like the problem a bit, like, isn't there something cooler than Google Forms, but then more expensive or more affordable than Typeform? So that was like a first like idea, I would say, but that was nothing concrete yet. Um, Also good to know is that like 10 years ago, Philip had once had like this weekend project that
Okay,
he launched on Product Hunt, and it was called Tally, and it was a tool for polls, so you could really easily make a poll. It was not a
right.
form builder, but it was something in the same space, and that got to like product number one very fast, but he never really did anything with it. So that was like a first. I mean, that just idea kind of came up as well, because we would have brainstorms thinking about what is this new thing, like what are we gonna do. We would just think of ideas, so, or problems that we've had ourselves. um, at the same time, we were also using Notion, to like
Okay.
for our own documentation and roadmap and so on, and we really loved the product. So I guess we were just talking and thinking, what if we can have the ease of use and like the sexiness of a product like Notion
hmm
combined with just a more fun to use form builder, you
Right.
know. And that's kind of, and until Philip was like, oh yeah, I made this tool once. It was called Tally, and it was a poll, and it was really easy. You didn't have to create an account. You could just go in and use it, and it did really well
Hmm.
on Product Hunt. All of that together uh, kind of made us think of, okay, what if we make a form builder?
Right. Right.
And in the beginning, we thought that just a form builder would not do it because there's so many, right? Like it's such a competitive
Exactly.
space.
Yeah.
So we're like, we need to do something else. And at the very start, we were thinking more of building like a new type of CRM to go
Okay.
with it as well. Like
Hmm.
because we thought just the form building, just the capturing data, that's not gonna cut it. We need like to give people more insights and more
Right.
ways to like manage the data.
Manage it.
Um, so we started working on all that, making mock-ups, looking how other products do it.
Hmm.
But then when Philip actually started building, we realized like how much work it is to actually
Yeah.
build a simple form builder. So we said, okay, we'll have to launch with something very basic. And we kind of threw the whole CRM data insights idea overboard, or we at least postponed it because it was like way too much for us
Yeah.
to handle. And we still didn't come back to it, and I don't think we ever will.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how we started with
Yeah,
Tally.
which kind of shows as well how important it is to do quick and small
Yeah,
releases instead of the
yeah,
opposite, right? Because
yeah,
otherwise, a lot of maybe founders without a lot of experience, they'll be like, no, we need to build this. So let's spend a year building this.
yeah.
That is super complex. And then they would launch, like, no one like it.
Right.
And for you, you actually you build only the form, which is already more than enough. And that's exactly what people wanted. But tell
Yeah,
me
and
one thing,
actually
Marie. Like, yeah,
the form was not you could like the very MVP, you could not even publish a form. So you could just try out the editor and we would share that with people just to see what they think.
okay.
And then only then we added like you can publish the form and share the form. You could only add like a name and an email address, and so it was very basic.
Right.
But we did make sure that we had like more features for our like official launch, but I would say that was only like 6 months later after sharing the
Okay.
basic version and collecting feedback and pimping it and
Mhm.
going forward
Did
like that.
you build with an audience already? Did you try to use the audience first approach?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have the audience yet, of course, when we started. So we had a Slack channel and we would just invite everyone in that would want to give feedback. So that would be like our very first audience
But how
where
would you find these people?
so we would go on Product Hunt and we would check similar tools that had been upvoted by people, and then we would just reach out to those people because we figured they might be interested in ours as well. And we would make lists of
You
like
reach out to the people that upvoted
similar
the
tools.
similar tools.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's
that's
basically
super
what we did.
smart.
Yeah,
So this is where your marketing experience comes, right? Like you
right.
know that you need to reach out to people, and it's a lot of like handwork,
Yeah,
right? So go there, send it. I've tried doing that myself. Like most of the people do not answer. Like
no.
how did you get them to answer? Like how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, most of them don't, like as you say. So we send a lot. I think we send thousands,
Twitter or email
and mostly
or
Twitter,
product hunt? Twitter.
some
Okay.
email. So via Product Hunt, I would check their Twitter profile because you cannot send messages on Product Hunt, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Then I would DM them if possible. If not, I would look for their email. So it's very time consuming. I think at one point we like hired someone on Fiverr to help us just to make the lists, just to make it
Which, by
like
the
a
way, this is a great idea. This is a
yeah,
great. I was just thinking, like, we need to build a way to just click and get a list of people from Product Hunt, right?
right. And we had something like Philip built something very scrappy
Of
like
course you
that.
did.
Uh, so we had
Okay.
something like that. We never like commercialized it, but actually at the time we were also thinking like, wow, this is yeah, other people can use this as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
um,
Yeah.
so there's a new startup ID for if someone is looking.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Um,
I love it.
yeah, so we did that, and we did that a lot, and it was very time consuming, and it was energy draining because you just don't get a lot of replies. We
Yeah.
did make it quite targeted, and we would like try to adjust the message so it would really look like at the
Yeah.
job title of the person, and really try to make it personal. So that kind
Yeah.
of
So
lowers the volume but higher the response rate.
here is, yeah, I really need to know your opinion on this because you're the marketing expert. How to do a proper cold email or cold message? Like, so
Yeah.
you already said a little bit. You have to personalize it. How long should it be? What is the action point? Like, what are the rules there?
Yeah, I would say I'm definitely not an expert in cold outreach. I think what helped for us is that I was the co-founder writing the message,
Right.
and we would make sure that the message is correct. So if it already feels like a cold email, then I mean, me, I get a lot of cold emails every day. I would just
Right.
immediately delete them. But if it's someone using like, hey, your first name, I saw you're busy with this and that, and I thought you might be interested in our product, and we would just love to hear your thoughts on it. So it would not be salesy. It would just be, I
Asking
respect
for
you
feedback.
for the experience that you have in your field.
Right.
Would you have 5 minutes to just look at our tool that we're building? And I
Right.
think like the humble approach there definitely helps, like we're asking for 5 minutes. Would be great if we could get some of your time, because most of those people were like startup founders or people that were really good at something.
Hmm.
So I guess that helped for us. But
Do
again, it
you
would also
immediately send the link to the product, or do you first try to get their
we did
attention and then?
no, we were
Okay, right
like, these
away.
people don't have time, right? So I don't want to send like multiple messages. So we had one super short message which would
Okay.
basically like, hey, how are you doing? We're building this and we would love to hear your thoughts, and just link to the product. And that
Yeah.
was it. So it was not long, it was very short. But again, I don't think that's like, there's no like one rule fits all for
Hmm.
these things. With Hotspot, it was completely different. We would do sequences of cold emails, like we would send 7 or 8 of them. We had different versions that we would try out, but
Wow.
that's something I feel like would not, doesn't really apply for Tally, because
Hmm.
now we have a more of like a product-led growth model.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that's how we would do it, and we got around like, I think 25% kind of replied, which for us was
That's quite
huge.
good. It's quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also just meant that there was some interest in it,
Hmm.
of course. And yeah, so that helped, and that just made us get our first, like, I would say first 100 users or something like that.
And you brought all of them to Slack even before the
No,
product was out.
no, we would bring them to the product, but on the product we had a link to Slack, and yeah, you could just join it. I mean, it was not a mandatory thing.
Right.
But people that would, like to talk to us or have a bit more questions would end
Hmm.
up joining the Slack. Yeah.
What is the real problem that you are solving that was not being solved already by the competitors?
I think it's not like it hasn't been solved before. It's just the way we have built the product. So I mean, form builders exist and there's a lot of them, so it's definitely not like a new problem that we've solved. The
Right.
problem that we've experienced is just that we wanted a product that is fun to use, so we didn't want to have like the outdated drag and drop model, and we wanted to have like the Notion like experience where you can just start typing and build your product with shortcuts.
Yes.
That's something we really liked and that we hadn't discovered yet. And that combined with actually just making the product largely free.
Mm.
Most of our competitors, or the bigger players in the market, they don't have, well, they have like a free trial, or for example with Typeform you can collect 10 responses and then you start paying, and that's something
Right.
that it's like an experience that we really hate. So we thought, okay, we just want to make it free, like unlimited forms, unlimited
Right.
responses. There's no like annoying paywalls there, but we'll just add one like extra set of features where you can pay if you're a team or you need a bit of more pro features. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't do. Like a lot of people have volume based pricing. You just
Mhm.
use more, collect more, so you pay more.
Yeah.
And we kind of like turned that upside down and just said, here's everything for free. But if you want to like remove the logo, if you want to customize emails, if you want to work with a team,
Mhm.
typically features that teams or companies would need,
Companies B2B.
then you
Yeah.
can then you can pay for Tally Pro.
Mhm.
So
So
that's
you're
yeah,
focusing initially indie hackers, kind
right,
of like
yeah,
bootstrappers, people that don't have a
yeah,
lot of money and they just want to
right,
use it, and that's your free tier.
yeah,
And then your idea is, and then for the paid tier, are
yeah.
there still indie hackers, or is already like more
Um,
companies?
there, there. We definitely have indie hackers and bootstrappers. A lot of like no-code freelancers that then could also turn into smaller agencies. So there's definitely that. We also have an indie hackers discount, which helps, and we're quite known in the space. So we definitely have paying indie hackers. But then as the product was growing and our audience was growing, we would get the attention of a lot more companies, usually startups, so more like SMEs. And they would typically be like the audience that would pay for our product,
Interesting.
because they just need a bit of, yeah, different features
That's so interesting.
than a
You target indie
bootstrapper.
hackers for the free tier, but then those
Right.
actually paying are not necessarily indie hackers.
Not
So it's like you have
necessarily,
different
yeah.
different your different tiers have different target customers, right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really. So we always promote our free tier to everyone, and
Right.
so the idea is that around 3% of all the free users. I mean, that's something that we know now converts to paying users. So we just promote
Three
Tally
percent.
um, as free because it is largely free, and then people usually start using it for free and then can convert to a paying
Mm-hmm.
subscriber.
Right.
Of course, now there's a lot of companies that come in and immediately subscribe because they don't want to have the Tally logo, if it's a bigger company. Plus we charge 29 a month, which for companies is
Yeah.
nothing,
It's
so
nothing.
that's usually a no-brainer to
Yeah.
upgrade. Yeah,
Uh-huh. So you got these users on Slack and you built with them.
yeah,
Uh, how how did that process go? So once you're ready to launch, what
yeah.
were your marketing strategies and how did it grow? Like, do you immediately see, okay, a lot of people are using it, or was it slow? Do you remember that part, that
Yeah.
process?
So we shared the MVP. It would be like September 2020, and then we only launched. So our public launch was on Product Hunt because we figured that's where a lot of people are that would be
Uh-huh.
interested in the product. And in between that, there's like a small 6 months. So we made sure that we had more features, because we didn't want to launch and then just get the feedback like, but I cannot enter my phone number, or I cannot enter this or this. So we made sure that we had like a set of input blocks that we felt like were necessary to
Mm-hmm.
be considered as a form builder.
Mm-hmm.
So we made sure we had those. And then at the meantime, we would also be answering a lot of questions about form builders online. So, for example, on Reddit or on Twitter, on Indie Hackers, whenever someone would be looking for a form builder, I would try to answer and like plug in Tally. So that was like our
Wow.
second way of um,
Uh-huh.
getting new
To get
users.
users. How
But
did you
then,
do that? Like, did you use any tool, or were you
yeah.
like basically every day going on Indie Hackers and checking for people asking for
Um,
forms?
I was using, so there's TweetDeck, which you can use to
Mm-hmm.
to scan Twitter, and then I was using, I still am using. It's also an indie tool. It's called, I think it's a five bot, which you can
Okay.
actually use it for free up to certain limits, and you can just scan for
Five bots.
keywords.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I can send it to you if you want to add
Yeah,
it.
that'd be great.
Um, and you can just scan for keywords on different channels, and if you can tweak those, and after a while you get good
Mm-hmm.
results, and when to when there's a
Right.
conversation going on where your product might be relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So then I would share that, but I think the most important part about our growth is that Tally is a product that kind of sells itself because it's a viral product.
Okay.
You know, you make a form, and the intention is always to share it with other people because you want other people to respond to
Yes,
it.
the marketing. That's something that I've
Yeah,
been exploring recently. The viral loop, right? Like the
right.
marketing viral loop. So
Yeah,
yeah,
how it works is we have on our free tier, we have a made with Tally badge. So everyone who makes a
so
form
smart.
with
Yeah.
the free tier would have that badge. So everyone who replies to the form also sees that badge. And
Mhm.
on the thank you page, they also see this page. This form was made with Tally, you know, if you want to try it out, and with a link to our product.
Yeah.
And so once you get that first set of users through cold outreach and answering conversations online and so on, being active in communities. So once we had the first set of users and they started sharing forms, it would just grow because of our own
Yes.
users, right? And that's kind of how we grow now. So that's the most important part of yeah of our growth basically.
That's so smart. Did you do that on purpose? Was this already part of your marketing background that you think, okay, before we launch, we need to find this viral loop. We need to make sure that people see the Tally logo
Yeah,
and that they know and they get curious about it. Was this already part of your strategy or it
it
just
was not
happened?
it was not, I mean, it just kind of went with the nature of having a form builder. And just it's something that we saw that other form builders are doing as well, like you have the brand mark and you pay to remove it. So it's not, we didn't have like before Tally, we didn't have the idea of, oh, it needs to be this viral product,
Mhm.
not like that. But once we started building it, we just realized like, okay, this will be
Right.
the main way to grow it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it kind of went just hand in hand with the type of product.
Mhm.
So I guess if you're building any type of publishing tool, you can use that strategy. But for other type of tools, it might be more difficult,
Right,
right?
right. So you got the first few users
Yeah,
from that strategy with forums and answering people, and then once they got into your machine, your viral loop strategy helped grow
expanding
and
it.
grow
Yeah,
and expand, and then at some point you have this kind of passive marketing tool that you don't have to do anything because just by people using it, they are
yeah,
sharing it with the world, right?
yeah, yeah. Right.
How did the payment part work? Like when you launched, did you already have like payment features?
No. So we our first goal was we wanted to make something that people would enjoy using, and it was free. So we didn't even have Tally Pro. We didn't have paying features.
Wow.
But we introduced it after a couple of months though. We introduced our first like Tally Pro package, and it didn't have a lot of features. I think it just had like removing the branding and also removing a commission if you use the payment
Right.
forms. It was
And
something
people
like
were
that.
asking for that, or is it just like did you just change it?
People were asking to remove the logo, of course,
Uh-huh.
because yeah, that's kind of what everyone wants. So that was
Right.
one that we felt like, okay, but this is our biggest marketing channel, and we are only a team of two, and we don't have the marketing budgets of the big players, so we cannot offer that for free
Right.
because that's our growth machine, right? So that should be a paid feature. So that was like a no-brainer to make that paid. And then afterwards, we wanted like, it's still very important for us whenever we launch a new feature that we our first idea is always to make it free,
Mhm.
unless it's really something that helps bigger businesses or something that costs us a lot of money as well.
Right.
So there's, for example, you can send emails, automatic emails after your TallyForms. If you want to like customize them and send those to more people, yeah, that's also a costly feature for us because you know we
Yeah.
need to handle that infrastructure. So that's a paid feature. It's also not necessarily something you need as a bootstrapper, for example,
Yes.
because there's other ways to solve that. So that would be one. And then I guess one of the bigger ones is like we have a custom CSS feature that
Mhm.
basically allows you to change the whole design of the form. And that is
Right.
paid for us
Interesting.
because if we would make that free, I mean, with the free version, you can also change the background, you can change the product, the colors, but you will
Mhm.
still kind of see that it's a tally form,
Yeah.
which is important for us because the forms are our biggest, marketing
Marketing.
channel.
Yeah.
But if you pay, you can fully customize it, and you would not, you would not know that it's a tally
Right.
form embedded on the website. Yeah.
And when you launch these features, how is it? Like, how is the conversion? Do you immediately have people paying for it? Do you still remember
Um,
that feeling of like, yes, we are making money?
Yeah, I mean, I remember our first payer was actually James from Indie Bites from the podcast.
Yes. Uh huh.
And he started paying, but we didn't have a paying tier yet. So he was like, "Oh, I love the product. I want to support like new software." And he started paying. So we didn't have the whole Stripe set up yet.
Yeah.
So we just made like this plan for, I don't know, I think it's like $9. We just put something on it. I think he's still on that plan actually. Just like for our first supporter. So that's how it started. I don't remember exactly how fast the conversion was when we introduced Tally Pro. It was mainly after our product hunt launch that we
Mm.
like we doubled our user base there on one, so free users on one day. And you can also
Wow.
see in our MRR growth that that was really like the beginning of people converting as
Right.
well. And
Ah, so
then
when you did a launch, you already had the possibility of asking for money
yeah, we
with
did.
the
Yeah,
premium features.
yeah, it was already
Okay.
there. Yeah, yeah,
How many users
correct.
did you have before Product Hunt and after?
um for the exact numbers I would need to look them up, but I think we had around, did we have a small thousand before,
Okay,
and
it's
then it
already
would like, or maybe a bit less, and then it would like doubled after the launch. Yeah.
okay. So you
So
already
it
had
was the
a lot of
first
users.
peak. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, that was like the
Okay,
first peak of growth for users and
okay,
MRR as well. The other paid features, we launched them gradually. So
right.
over the the past 2 years, and it's not like one feature has really like caused like a giant peak. It just kind of compounded, and
Right.
yeah, we just try to
And, and
keep on adding value to the page features.
and since then, is how is the growth? Is like just linear, like exponential? Is it always growing and then go or also kind of fluctuating?
Yeah, I mean, year one was, or like first 6 months was like very low, and then after our product hunt launch, it just really went up quite fast.
Mhm.
But I think in the first year we ended the year one with like an MRR of, I think, 8K.
Okay.
And so that's year one. And now we finished year two last month with 30K. So yeah, it is
Wow.
just definitely speeding up a lot, and it's just
Wow.
the viral loop that is doing its work. I would say, yeah.
From this 30K, how much is it profit? Is like a big percentage is it profit?
Yeah, our costs are quite low because running the product is, it's just server costs, and I mean
Right.
those costs are increasing rapidly as our user base is growing as well.
Hmm.
So I think it's yeah, it would be like 70% or something would be a profit.
70. Wow.
Yeah, some, but of
It's a
course now
lot.
we're starting to hire as well, and we
Uh-huh.
also started paying ourselves salaries in year two. So those things are also like kind of in the costs. So it's
Uh-huh.
mainly salaries, and then tools that we use. We don't really do paid advertising yet. Like we're starting with
Uh-huh.
first experiments, so there's not really money that went into that. So yeah, it was very profitable from the beginning. Yeah.
Wow. It's so exciting. It's so exciting. So now, and to kind of finish here our conversation, how is your life now, right? So you have a kid, and you have the money that I guess your anxiety is a little bit reduced. But I'm interested in knowing, yeah, what is a day in your life, and how much many hours do you work?
Yeah.
How?
So I would say less than we would want to, because we have like a bit of a daycare crisis in Belgium. There's not enough people to take care of the kids, basically, and she doesn't go to
Okay.
school yet. So we have like daycare from basically 9 to 5, which means that we are also kind of stuck into a 9 to 5
Hmm.
time frame during the day. And then usually we would, depending on the plans we have, work a bit in the evening, when our daughter goes to
Right.
bed. And in the weekend, when she does a nap, we would probably also be working. Um, so it's not like we work day and night because we just cannot and we don't have the energy for that.
Right.
But we are still in this constant struggle of how can we organize our household and family so we can
Yeah.
be more productive and work more. In the end, we also just had to admit that our lives have changed, and
Right.
it will be difficult to work a lot more. So we also had to expand the team, and that's
Hmm.
why we hired our
Okay.
first customer support person last week, actually, who's part time now, helping us out with
Uh-huh.
answering Slack messages and emails,
Oh,
which
okay.
and we waited a bit too long with that, I would say, because our day would look like, we would get up, would say at 7, make our daughter ready, bring her to the
The kid.
kindergarten, and then work like, I would say, from 8ish, 8:30 to like 5 when we need to pick her up again.
Okay.
And half of the day would be answering emails and support questions.
Right.
So that only left like a couple of hours a day to really build new features or work
Right.
on marketing projects. And that was way too little. Like we were just getting too stressed about that because the
Hmm.
audience is growing and we're getting a lot more questions on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So we just decided that we, cannot keep up with the pace,
Interesting.
and that's why we chose to have help on the customer support front
Hmm.
to start with. And it's week 1, but it's already giving us a lot more headspace and
I can
and
imagine. Yeah.
a bit more time to just focus on
Uh-huh.
growing and selling the product. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did having uh, a baby, was it something that changed your approach to the way that you make business that actually helped? That maybe without having the baby you'd be like, no, I wouldn't do like that way. Like, did you
I,
become more productive or something that actually like positive or good?
something positive, yeah.
No, yeah, this sounds really wrong.
But
I
I
know what I
get it,
said.
yeah. And I totally get it. I think what's good about it is that she like time box, like she makes sure that you have a limited time during the day, but
Right.
that also kind of you have to be productive during those hours, so you have to set priorities and you have to say no to a lot of things. So we, for example, I mean, except for interviews and podcasts, we don't do calls. So if someone asks like, can we hop on a quick call, 99% of times we will say no, because we just
Right.
don't have the time for that. Like during those hours, those need to be really productive working hours, and everything you do within those hours need to help in some way to
Hmm.
grow Tally. So I think
Right.
that
You're more
really
focused.
helped with focus and setting priorities and
Hmm.
postponing things that are not that important yet, bootstrapping things, just doing stuff instead of thinking more strategically. Of course,
Right.
after a while, that kind of turns against you because then you feel like, okay, we're just stuck in the day to day, and we don't really have a vision about how should we grow it. So that's why
Yeah.
we now are growing the team, so we have a bit more headspace to do that. But so
Right.
it helped to just focus, and it also helped for us to not think about work once in a while because
Yes. Yeah.
she's there, and you just cannot talk about
Of course. Of
work all the
course.
time. And especially as a couple, that helps us to
Uh-huh.
set some
Yeah.
boundaries, yeah,
Yeah.
that we
How's
would not be
your
able to
personal life?
do
Yeah. Makes a lot
otherwise.
of
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
How is your also your personal life? Like, do you go on dates or do you go with your friends? Like, or is it like
yeah.
baby work, baby work?
No, so we try to have something fun outside of work as well. So how we see it is we work together, we live together. So we're like always together. So during the week we make sure that we do separate things. So in the evening, Philip would go for drinks with his friends, or and then I would be home and I could work a bit more and babysit, or the
Yeah.
other way. So we each
Right.
have like. Philip has does bouldering. I do Pilates. Like we each have like our hobby
Yeah.
and our friends. So we try to do those during the week, weeknights, I would say. And then in the weekends, we would mostly be together as a family and
Mhm.
do things with our daughter. And Philip is from Bulgaria, so we live in Belgium right now, but
Mhm.
we also travel to his family once in a
Right.
while, and we'd like to travel a bit more next year. So we'll
Yeah.
see how that goes because
Yeah, that'd be
yeah,
cool.
traveling
Uh,
and working is also not that easy with a kid. But yeah, that's kind of how our private lives look like.
yeah. I mean, great tips. Great tips for also indie parents, right? I love the
Yeah,
idea also on like separate a little bit also your time to have like me time as well. I
yeah,
think that's also really really important.
yeah.
Last
That
question:
helps us
where
a
do you
lot.
see yourself like in 5 years? Where do you see the business and you and your family and all of that? What
I
at
think
least what
5 years
would you
is,
wish?
yeah, hard to say. I think I mean, we're definitely in, like with Tally, we're in it for the long run. We decided that we want to stay bootstrapped. So, I mean, never say never, but I think we won't be raising money, and I hope we can continue to grow organically and
Hmm.
also grow the team. So I think the goal would be to make ourselves a bit less important within the company, and make sure that if that someone else can replace us basically. And yeah,
Okay.
if we can build a sustainable lifestyle business for our family, that's kind of the
Right.
goal. um,
Do you want to work less and have enough money to like sustain yourself and sustain your lifestyle,
I
or you
think
see
that
yourself like I want to build more stuff, I want to work more,
yeah,
not
I
more?
mean, hard to say. We I don't see ourselves like not working. That's also not something that would be possible in the near future. But what we would love to do at one point is to be able to share our experience with other startups, and maybe invest in other startups if we would ever have the funds. I think that would be like the dream. And I guess the
In these
end,
startups?
yeah, I think can be anything, but indie would be quite cool to do. um, and it kind of depends what happens with Tally. I mean, I guess as any SaaS, at one point you would be interested in selling the product.
Right.
But I don't think that's something that will be for the coming years.
Okay.
But if that happens one day and that gives us, the budget to maybe try something new or to invest in other startups, then I think that
Mhm.
that would be the dream for us.
Thank you so much, Marie. I think it was so interesting to get to know you and to get to know your mindset, and I think you are definitely an inspiration as well for a lot of indie parents. There's a lot of them out there that think that yeah, maybe having children is kind of goes against building a product, and you are the example that it's not true, that you can have both, and yeah, true inspiration and have a great product. So thank you so much for sharing your experience here with the wannabe entrepreneurs.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was really nice chatting to you.
And this was another wannabe entrepreneur. See you next time.